Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Jai Gopijana Vallabha Jayo Giri Varadhari Jayo Giri Varadhari Shodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Shodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Jayo Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Shri Radha Madhava ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, canto, second canto, chapter 10, entitled Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions, shloka 25. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. gatim jigīṣataḥ pādau, ruruhāte bhikāmikām, padbhyām yajñaḥ svayam havyam, karmabhiḥ kriyate nṛbhiḥ, gatiṁ jigīṣataḥ pādau, ruruhāte bhikāmikām, padbhyām yajñaḥ svayam havyam, karmabhiḥ kriyate nṛbhiḥ. Svayam havyam, karmabhiḥ kriyate pādau, Viṣṇu. Svayam havyam, gatim, movement, jigīṣataḥ, so desiring, pādau, the legs, ruruhāte, being manifested, abhikāmikām, purposeful, padbhyām, from the legs, yajñaḥ, Lord Viṣṇu, svayam, personally himself, havyam, the duties, karmabhiḥ, by one's occupational duty, kriyate, cause to be done, nṛbhiḥ, by different human beings. Translation, Purport, by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Thereupon, because of his desiring to control movement, his legs became manifested. And from the legs, the controlling deity named Viṣṇu was generated. By his personal supervision of this act, all varieties of human beings are busily engaged in dutiful occupational service. Purport. Every human being is engaged in his particular occupational duty, and such activities are visible as men go hither and thither. This is very prominently visible in big cities of the world. People are going all over the cities with great concern from one place to another. This movement is not limited only to the cities, but is also visible outside the cities from one place to another and from one city to another by different means of vehicles. Men are moving by cars and rails on the roads, but subways within the earth and by planes in the sky, for the purpose of business success. But in all these movements, the real purpose is to earn wealth for comfortable life. For this comfortable life, the scientist is engaged, the artist is engaged, the engineer is engaged, the technician is engaged, all in different branches of human activity. But they do not know how to make the activities purposeful to fulfill the mission of human life. Because they do not know this secret, all their activities are targeted towards the goal of sense gratification without control. And therefore, by all this business, they are unknowingly entering into the deep regions of darkness. Because they have been captivated by the external energy of the Supreme Lord, they have completely forgotten the Supreme Lord Viṣṇu, and thus they have taken it for granted that this life, as presently manifested under the conditions of material nature, is all in all for enjoying the highest amount of sense gratification. But such a wrong conception of life cannot give anyone the desired peace of mind. And thus, in spite of all advancement in knowledge, by use of the resources of nature, no one is happy in this material civilization. The secret is that at every step they should try to execute sacrifices towards the path of world peace. The Bhagavad Gita also advises the same secret in the following verses. Svesve karmabhiḥ samsiddhim labhate nṛbhiḥ svakarma nirata siddhim yatha vindati tachrino yatta pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatham svakarmana tam abhyarchya siddhim vindati manava. The Lord said to Arjuna, just hear from me how one can attain the highest perfection in life simply by discharging his specified occupational duty. Man can attain the highest perfection of life by worshipping the Supreme Lord and by performing sacrifice for the sake of the Supreme Lord Viṣṇu, who is all-pervading and by whose control every living being acquires his desired facilities according to his personal propensity. There is no harm in having different propensities in life, because every human being is proportionately independent to chalk out the plan of his life by different occupations. But one should make it a point in his life to know perfectly well that he is not independent absolutely. One is certainly under the control of the Supreme Lord and under different agencies. Knowing this, one should make it a point that by his work and the result of his labor, he serves the Supreme Lord as prescribed by the authorities expert in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord Viṣṇu. For performing such occupational duties in life, the leg is the most important instrument of the body, because without the help of the legs, one cannot move from one place to another, and therefore the Lord has special control over the legs of all human beings, which are meant for performing yajñas. Om Jnanatimmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Viṣṇu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Bracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangir Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurat Vishya Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, welcome everybody this morning. So in the previous verse, and in this verse we hear about manifestation of different sense organs of Virat Purusha and presiding deities who are controlling these sense organs. So in the previous sloka we heard about creation of the hands. Now we hear about manifestations of legs. And the Lord Viṣṇu, who is presiding deity of the legs, which is telling us about the importance of legs. They are meant for performing yajñaḥ for Viṣṇu, or engaging the body of human beings in the service of the Lord. And that is original purpose of all senses, to be engaged in the service of the Lord. So not only legs, but all the senses, working senses and knowledge gathering senses. But unfortunately, especially in this age, most of the people, they do not use their senses for that purpose. For example, legs are mostly used, as Prabhupada says, for moving hither and thither. For what purpose? People are moving, but why they are moving? Just imagine a picture of big city, Kolkata, New York, London. Thousands and thousands of people on the street, on work days, on busy morning hours. They're going here and there, and it's very difficult to stop them. If you just step aside or look from above, it looks like ants are moving here and there, thousands and millions of ants just going here and there. And not only on legs, they are moving also on the wheels, on 2 wheels, on 4 wheels, hundreds and thousands of cars and motorcycles. They are going on the highways here and there. There is basically no difference between thousands of ants busily going and crawling here and there. Where are they going? Where are all these people going on the streets of these big cities? They go to work, to their offices, factories, schools. They're going for discharging their occupational duties. And what is the purpose they have behind it? Mostly filling the belly and satisfying other senses, basically sense gratification. And as Srila Prabhupada says, by all this business, they are unknowingly entering into deep regions of darkness, which is very unfortunate, and it's a result of ignorance. So all these different varieties of movement and work come from different conditioned natures that are called svabhavas. And this conditioned nature of svabhava is very, very difficult to change. Everybody has some inclination for certain type of work, for certain type of food, for certain type of association, has certain types of desires and interests. There are unlimited combinations born from permutations of 3 modes of material nature, of 3 gunas. So svabhava is broadly categorized in 4 varnas, brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaishyas, and shudras. But even within each of these varna, there are unlimited varieties of conditioned natures corresponding to each individual soul's personal identity and their history in the cycle of birth and death. And even when we become a devotee, it's not that our conditioned nature is gone overnight and then we are immediately liberated and have a transcendental nature. No, some unfavorable traits of our svabhava, they can persist for very, very long, sometimes for 30 years, 40 years, even whole life. Even after 40 years, we can discover that we still have some anarthas that we had in the beginning. Still same conditioning. For example, still getting angry very easily for a small thing, easily provoked. Or we are still very nervous or anxious, or still quite proud, or still have tendency, to exploit or cheat others. or any other kind of habit, still like to watch movies or eat chocolate or whatever it is. So it is compared, nature is compared to a dog's tail. It's always curled. As much as you try, to straighten it, it always goes back. So by our nature, we are programmed to act in a certain way. Like a machine can be programmed by certain software to always behave in exactly the same way. So that's why those who are conditioned, they have a predictable behavior. If you know very well somebody, you know how that person is going to react if you tell him this or that. You know how to make him angry, you know how to make him peaceful, because he's programmed in a certain way, and you just need to know what his program is. So like you press a button on a machine, and machine acts in a certain way. So similarly, you press a person in a certain way, and he reacts in a certain way. So this is conditioned jiva that is not free. It's bound by three modes of material nature, and most of his reactions are reflexive, just instinctive, reflexive reactions. And there is not much freedom in that conditioning. Recently, I read a story of a man in his electric car. These modern electric cars, they're so sophisticated that you can put them on autopilot and they can drive by themselves and you just relax. So this man, he was driving in his electric car on autopilot, and at one point he could not switch automatic mode off. He could not take over the control of the car. He tried pressing the brake, switching off. Nothing would work. He was robbed, and the car was going 60 miles per hour by his own program somewhere, and he didn't know what to do. So he called police, and 5-6 police cars, they were chasing this electric car, and at the end, one big police car had to stop on the front, so his car could bump into it. In this way, they managed to stop it. So in a similar way, conditioned living entity is locked in the car of this body and mind and programmed by his conditioned nature. So development of a human being means that we are changing the traits of our conditioned nature from those who are unfavorable to those that are favorable. So unfavorable qualities are sometimes called anarthas, unwanted things in the heart. As I mentioned, they can persist for a very long time, especially if one does not want to change them, or if he doesn't know how to change them. But both things are needed. You need to want to change, to recognize first that something is wrong in my nature, and second thing, you need to know how to change it. So I don't want to be angry, anxious, lusty, greedy, envious, jealous, but what do I want if I don't want these negative qualities? In the first canto, it's described how when Maharaj Yudhishthira and 5 Pandavas, they came in front of dying Bhishmadev, he gave them many instructions, and amongst those instructions, he gave advice for all human beings that they should have the following 9 qualifications. So Bhishmadev said, number 1, not to become angry. So each human being, regardless Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, or outcast, he should not become angry, not lie, to equally distribute wealth, to forgive, to beget children only by one's legitimate wife, to be pure in mind and hygienic in body, not to be inimical towards anyone, to be simple, and to support servants and subordinates. In other words, to take care of those who are in his care. So Prabhupada comments, one cannot be called a civilized person without acquiring the above mentioned preliminary qualities. So to become a civilized, we need to have these these qualities. And these are not the only qualities. For example, in the seventh canto, when Narada Muni is talking about Varnashrama Dharma, he is listing 30 qualities. I'll just mention a few of them, not all of them. For example, satyam, daya, tapa, shaucham, titik, sheka, shamodhama, ahimsa, brahmacharyam cha, tyaga, svadhyāyam, arjavam, santosha, samadrik, seva. Truthfulness, mercy, austerity, bathing twice a day, tolerance, discrimination between the right and wrong, control of the mind, control of the senses, non-violence, brahmacharya, celibacy, charity, studying the scriptures, simplicity, satisfaction, serving the saintly persons, and so on. So these are qualities that must be acquired in a human form of life. And Prabhupada comments simply, actually Narada Muni says, simply by acquiring these qualifications, one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just imagine, simply by having these good qualities, Krishna will be pleased. So we should ask ourselves, do we have all these qualities, some of them? Well, if not, there is still hope that we can develop them. But of course, it's a gradual process. You cannot change overnight. It takes time. If you try to stop ants rushing hither and thither, or people on the street, you'll just cause a disturbance. If you tell them, oh, sir, stop, where are you running? This is not the purpose of your life. Don't go for work. Go with me to the Hare Krishna temple. No, he'll get angry. You cannot do this. So, Lord Krishna, He is advising us not to try to abruptly change somebody's conditioning, but to try to engage him in the work for him, for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. If you remember in Bhagavad Gita, Nabudhi bhedam jhanayed ajñānam karma sanginam joshayed sarva karmani vidvan yukta samacharan. So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. So again, we should try to change not the type of work, at least in the beginning, but the spirit of work, the mentality of the work, to try to work with devotion. Or as devotees in early days had a mantra, just add Krishna to your life and it will become sublime. You don't need to give up your job, you don't need to join a temple and become a full-time monk. No, just add Krishna. And this is confirmed by Sutta Goswami, Srimad Bhagavatam, in the second chapter of the first canto. Ata pumbir dvija shrishta varnashrama vibhagasha svanurshtitasya dharmasya samsidir haritoshanam. It is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging duties of his own occupation according to Varnashrama division is to please the personality of Godhead. Samsidir haritoshanam. This is the perfection of all one's occupational duties. So these are prescriptions for those attached to their work, and their results, not to stop them, but to change their motivation, their mentality. So instead of running hither and thither to fulfill our bellies and satisfy the other senses, we should try to do the same thing for the pleasure of the Lord. Dedicate our work for His pleasure. So before we can teach people how to work, we should be knowing it and practicing it ourselves. So how is it done? The question is, let's look at some steps. First step is sambandha as usual. One needs to know, or we need to know who we are, and to be conscious of it while performing the work. For example, if I think I'm a cat, although I have a human body, can I properly perform my human activities, go for work and do other things? No, I think I'm a cat, so I will do things that cats do. If you didn't know, I also didn't know that recently in the West there's a new trend of some people identifying themselves with different sort of animals, like wolves, cats, foxes, and sometimes they go on the street and protest. Hundreds of people, I've seen a video, hundreds of people were howling like wolves on the street of Germany, asking to be recognized as wolves. What can we say? They feel the need to be recognized because they think they're wolves. So these are some of the examples of one's self-image that does not match the body. But generally they do. Man thinks he's a man, not a rabbit. But even then, when man thinks he's his man's body or woman thinks he's a woman's body, it is still misidentification because we are not these bodies. We are the spirit souls, we are the jivas. So conditioned living being is identified with the body, and naturally all the work that conditioned jiva does is for the benefit of the body. Because I think I'm a body, whatever I do, it's for the pleasure of the body. So body-mind consciousness is default consciousness of everybody in this world. So if we do not put deliberate effort in going beyond that default identification, we will act on that body-mind platform, and all our work will be done for the body and the mind. So this applies not only to performing one's occupational duties within Varnashrama, but also to our activities in Krishna consciousness. It's also relevant for devotees. If I'm not clear who I am, but just mechanically go to the temple for Mangalarati, chant my rounds, read, do this and that, it becomes a ritual, a mundane religiosity. I'm not really doing it for Krishna's pleasure. I'm just doing it because I've seen other devotees do it. So it's a ritual. So hopefully I'll get some good results for myself, some sukriti, some piety. Therefore, it is very important before doing any work or any service, as we devotees call our work, is to be first conscious who we are. I'm Nitya Krishna Das, eternal servant of Krishna, part and parcel of Krishna. In psychology, there is something called self-image and the public image. What is public image? Public image is how others perceive us, how others see us. And that public image sometimes or often can be very much fake or false. Politicians, when they're running for elections, they have a huge marketing campaigns to project themselves as the benefactors and well-wishers of everybody in order to win the elections. So it's artificially created public image. And then there is a concept of self-image. This is how we perceive ourselves. And that image also can be distorted, and often it is. For example, a person who is overweight, he thinks he's a fat, and because of that, he might be depressed. Or somebody else thinks, oh, I'm so sickly, I have weak health. And most likely, he will be sickly. Yeah. So we are seeing ourselves through the lenses of our previous experiences, whether they are good or bad. And often they are traumas. I know some people who, when they were kids, they thought they had big ears, so they were kind of traumatized because others were joking with them, oh, you have a big ears, so they had to grow big hair around to cover their ears. And even when they have grown up, still these big ears, in their own mind, caused them trouble, so they went for surgery, you know. Sometimes people do plastic surgery to change some facial, you know, features in order to feel good, to have some good self-image. But they don't understand it's just, you know, image created in their mind that really has nothing to do with the external features of their body. There was one experiment I read about. Some researchers, they had some patients in a mental asylum, in a mental institution, and they asked them to fill some tests just to check where they are. And of course, they took these tests, and the results were confirming, yeah, these people are sick, mentally sick. But then they did something different. They told all these patients, please imagine that you are sane, that you are normal. And now try to solve all these tests with this conception of yourself being a normal, like everybody else. And patients, they did exactly what they were asked for. And surprisingly, the results were like almost of those of normal persons. They filled the, you know, the test correctly because they try to think as the normal persons. So material world is also like a mental institution. Everybody is insane by forgetting their eternal identity. So that's why we need Shastra, Guru and Sadhus to tell us who we are. I'm by nature eternal servant of Krishna, but by some misfortune, due to being inimical towards him from time immemorial, I have been identifying with his body and the mind. Now, pujaris, before going to the altar, they're supposed to do Bhutta Shuddhi meditation. Theoretically, I don't know who is doing it because everybody is in a rush and has no time. But theoretically, we are supposed to do Bhutta Shuddhi, means to purify the elements of this body and identify ourselves as the servant of Krishna through meditation. And then, with this consciousness, go on the altar and serve the Lord. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he tells us, Naham vipro nacha narapatir na vaishyo na shudro naham varni nacha grihapatir navanasto yatirva kintu prodya nikila paramananda purni purnamritabdher gopi bhartu padaka, my Lord, dasa dasa anudasa. So I'm not a brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya or shudra. I'm not a brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha or sannyasi. I'm the servant of the servant of the servant, the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who is the maintainer of gopis, gopi bhartu. This is my real identity. So this is the first step. Once we purify our conception of ourselves, our self-image, then we can approach the activity that we are supposed to do in a proper manner. Whether it be a deity worship, or is it a chanting, or any other labor of bhakti, or our occupational duty. So we need to remind ourselves again and again, as many times during the day it is necessary, before doing anything. I'm a servant of Krishna. I'm a servant of Guru and Vaishnavas. So this was the first step. What is the second step? Second step before doing anything is to formulate our sankalpa, our intention, what we intend to do in the service we are undertaking. If before this we clearly establish in our mind that I'm Krishna's servant, that naturally the purpose of all our work, of all our activities will be to please him. I mean, this is the definition of the servant, to please the master. So thus we state our sankalpa, intention, by declaring to ourselves or to Krishna, I'm a Krishna servant and I want to make him happy by doing this, by chanting my rounds, by hearing Bhagavatam, by cleaning the temple, or doing any other thing, doing my occupational duty, my job. Same principle applies. I'm doing this for Krishna's pleasure. We have to remember that before doing anything. So if we don't do these two steps, identify ourselves as Krishna's servants and do not dedicate our work to Krishna, but just do it mechanically, most likely it will just a work done on a bodily platform, and the result of it will be material, karmabhiḥ. Like in case of ordinary work, of course, if it's a limbo bhakti, it will be agyata sukriti or a mixed bhakti, but it will not be a pure bhakti. For it to become pure devotional, unalloyed devotional service, Shuddha Bhakti, the consciousness of the servant and intention to please the Lord must be there. It's absolutely necessary. So in the Bhagavatam, we also find the procedure for offering our work to Krishna. It's in 11th canto where Sri Kavi Yogendra is teaching Maharaj Nimi. He says, Kayena vacha manasendriyarva. Whatever one does with his body, words, mind, and the senses, buddhyatmana vanusrita svabhavat. Whatever one does with his intelligence or purified consciousness according to one's svabhava, karoti yad yat sakalam parasmai naraya nayeti samarpayet tat. One should offer to the Supreme thinking, this is for the pleasure of Narayan. So whatever we do with our body, mind, and words, we should offer to the Lord thinking this is for the pleasure of Narayan. Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, commenting on this verse, he says that the person who is doing this, who is offering whatever he does to the Lord, he cannot anymore be considered to be on the same level as a karmi, fruitive worker, who is doing everything for the sense gratification. Apparently, this person who is offering everything to the Lord, he looks like a conditioned soul, he acts like a conditioned soul, but because he offers all his activities to the Lord, he is no longer touched by countless miseries that arise from the reactions to materialistic activities. So there are those karmis or fruitive workers who are sufficiently pious and they follow the example of sadhus, of self-realized souls, so they dedicate the fruits of their activities to the lotus feet of the Lord, although they are still attached to their work. And although this is counted as karma mishra bhakti, or devotional service mixed with desire for karma, still that devotional service is gradually bringing them to the level of pure devotional service. It's a progressive step forward. And Srila Sridhar Swami, commenting on the same verse, he says that the primitive materialistic concept is to consider that Supreme Lord is present only in a temple, and then we have to go to the temple or church to offer our activities, our offering to the Lord. No, he says those who are more advanced, they are in their normal daily activities offering everything to the Lord. They do not claim proprietorship of their daily activities, but they offer everything to the Lord in the course of their day. Because the perception of anything as separate from the Supreme Lord or his proprietorship is called maya or illusion. So we should not see that anything is separate from him. Otherwise, we are illusioned. So while working, everybody should meditate on the Supreme Lord, thinking, Yat sakalam parasmai narayanaya. I'm working for the Supreme Lord, for Narayan. And whatever results come from that work, I shall keep the bare minimum that is necessary for my personal maintenance, and the rest I will offer for the glorification of Narayan. And Srila Viṣṇu Chakra Thakur, he compares ordinary sense gratifier who gets up in the morning and then he brushes his teeth, takes bath or not takes bath, drinks tea, drinks coffee, watches TV. And he says that sense gratifier executes all these activities for his personal material enjoyment. Karmi, fruitive worker, on the other hand, he does the same activities following the karma kanda prescription of the Vedas for the pleasure of demigods and forefathers, pitris. But devotee is the higher of these two categories. He does everything for the pleasure of Narayan, in the same way as they do for the pleasure of their own selves or the demigods. So everything we do throughout the day can become a limb of bhakti anga, if we do it in the proper consciousness with the proper meditation. So in the beginning we gave an image of a busy city where people are running hither and thither like ants, doing so many things. Now I want to give a similar but different picture where everybody is also very much engaged, but with different consciousness. This is a picture of another world that we are given in a 10th canto where Uddhava comes to Vrindavan. And he observes his first time coming to Vrindavan, and what does he see? He sees the bulls fighting with each other for the fertile cows. He hears the mooing of the cows that are burdened by their others and they're chasing after their calves. He hears the noise of milking of the cows, and he sees the cows jumping here and there. He hears the sound of the flute playing, and then he hears the cowherd men and women singing the glories of Krishna and Balaram, beautifully dressed, and their houses appearing very abundant with the paraphernalia for worship. He sees the flowering forest echoing with the flocks of birds and swarms of bees, beautified by the lakes crowded with the swans, Karandava ducks, and bowers of lotuses. So this is a different picture of a spiritual world. And then he observes what other residents of Vrindavan, Vrajavasi is doing, because they're all very, very busy. They are not lying down and sleeping all day. So he notices the gopis. What they are doing? Yadohani vahanani matano palena. Srila Sanatana Goswami, he describes in Bhagavatam. They're milking the cows. They're threshing the grains. They're churning the yogurt. They're gathering cow dung, smearing this cow dung on the walls, like you still see today in some Vraj villages. What else? Prenkina kanarba, ruditokshana marjanada. They're riding on swings. So sometimes gopis have a free time and they ride on swings, caring for the crying babies. Babies are crying, so they have to attend to them. Sprinkling the ground with the water, cleaning their houses, marjanada, and so on and so forth. They're doing so many activities during the day, but how they're doing? Gayanti chainam anurakta diyo ashrukantyo. Their minds fully attached to Krishna, their throats always choked with the tears. They constantly sing about Krishna, Gayanti. While doing everything all the time, they sing about Krishna and his glorious deeds, his qualities and his pastimes. So Dhanya Vrajastriya Urukrama Chittayanya. So these ladies of Raja, they are the most fortunate of women. Their minds fully attached to Krishna, their throats always choked with the tears. They constantly sing about him while milking the cows, winnowing grain, churning butter, gathering cow dung for fuel, riding on swings, caring for their crying babies, sprinkling the ground with the water, cleaning their houses, and so on. And their minds are fixed on Krishna alone. So this is our ideal, Dhanya Vrajastriya Urukrama Chittayana, to do everything while our mind is firmly fixed on Krishna. And how to do this, I'll remind you just quickly. First, we have to identify ourselves as Krishna's servant. Second, we have to make a sankalpa intention. I'm doing this for for Krishna pleasure. And then there's the third thing. During the day we need to hear and chant about Krishna, and then naturally Krishna and his form, qualities and pastimes will come to our mind during our daily activities. Okay, I think I will stop here. If you have any questions or comments, please. Yes, Gopinath Prabhu. Welcome to Mayapur.
Thank you for the class, Prabhu. Sankalpa, like a clear thinking that I'm doing this for Krishna, and also in the verse it was talked about the legs going here and there. An ideal example came into my mind of Maharaj Ambarish. There's a triple verse explaining how Maharaj Ambarish is using all his knowledge, inquiring senses and working senses in the service of the Lord. Perfectly, could we kind of say that he could be like an icon of Sankalpa, or what do you think?
Yeah, the Maharaj Ambarish is the example of one who achieved perfection by doing all 9 limbs of bhakti. So he engaged everything, his legs for going to the temple, his hands for cleaning the temple, his words glorifying the Lord, and so on and so forth. And definitely, yeah, he's the example of one who does everything with attention to serve the Lord. But he may not need, every time to think about it, because he's on the level of spontaneous devotional service. So for him, it's a completely natural. He doesn't even to think for him he is doing. He just does it, and it's all just for Krishna. His consciousness is fixed on giving Krishna happiness, satisfying Krishna senses. So at that stage, there is no need for stating the sankalpa. But for the one who is still in material condition consciousness, it doesn't come naturally, it doesn't come spontaneously. So that's why we need, to put some effort. We need, to try to reprogram our mind by stating, I'm a Krishna servant and I want to do this for Krishna's pleasure. So Maharaj Ambarish, he may not need to do these mechanical steps, but we do need, until it becomes our second nature. So we are in the process of changing our nature, which is conditioned. It is in the state that we do everything for ourselves. It is in the state that we identify the world, body, and the mind. So it takes time to reprogram it, because for millions of lifetimes we were programming it. I'm this body, I want this for myself. I'm this body, I want this for myself. So to change it overnight, it's not going to happen. You need again and again, to reprogram. I'm not this body. Why Prabhupada, on so many places, he states, we are not this body, we are not this body, we are not this body. Because he knows that this conception is so deeply rooted in our consciousness that we need to hear it again and again. And we need to hear what we are. I'm a servant of Krishna, I'm a servant of Krishna. So we need to repeat to ourselves. Otherwise, we'll be on the autopilot, Mechanically, we will not think what we are, but we will act as a body, and we will act for the pleasure of the body. It will be just spontaneous to our conditioned nature, to our conditioned svabhava. So in order to break this cycle, we need to consciously try to reprogram the mind by stating, I'm a Krishna servant, I'm doing this for Krishna service. Again and again, day after day, until it becomes natural, like in Maharaj Ambarish's case. And then there's no need to repeat it anymore. But at this stage, at least in my stage, we need to. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for lecture, Prabhu. So Prabhupada many times, he, of course, reminding us about that we are not this body, but at the same time, Prabhupada always gives the different angles of view, how to should understand that we are not this body. We can see that in his lectures, he never repeated the same things, The same way how he convincing us that we are not this body. This is one point what I would like to add for your other question. And also I have some question that in this verse itself, it says that, I can just read.
I can just comment quickly.
Thereupon, because of his desiring to control movement, his legs became manifested, and from the legs, the controlling deity named Viṣṇu was generated. This controlling deity, so Krishna is not direct cause of this material manifestation, he is indirect cause, and at the same time he is saying here that he is controlling deity. What does he controlling? That he is controlling, he is not controlling movement. You know, I can understand that the movement of our body controlled by some demigods, which is, they are residing in our body, and this just directly makes this all, like our body like some device, which is moving according to the what the controlling deity he allowed in us. But what control the Viṣṇu? What type of controlling makes the Viṣṇu himself? That's my question.
Okay, I'll just quickly comment on the first point. This is a good point that you made, that Prabhupada would always try to make it interesting for us to understand that we are not this body. So we can also make it interesting to ourselves and not repeat in the same way that I'm a servant of Krishna. We can, explain to our mind in a different way in order for our mind to be more receptive, so we can make it more interesting. In regard to Lord Viṣṇu controlling, this is the Krishna, he expands into so many Viṣṇu expansions for different purposes. So he expands also as Lord Viṣṇu, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma for the purpose of creation, maintenance and destruction, and we learn that Viṣṇu is in charge of maintenance of this universe, while Lord Brahma is in charge of creation, Lord Shiva is in charge of destruction. So there is no problem for him expanding and performing the function of a demigod. So in this particular case, the verse is very clear that Lord himself took charge of control of the legs. In his expansion, one of his expansions, Kshirodakashayi Viṣṇu, he expanded himself as a Paramatma in the hearts of all living entities, and he is, permitting all bodily functions. If the Paramatma within our heart would not allow us to lift a hand or to move here and there, how we would do anything. So the Lord has no problem of performing the function that generally demigods do, because they are also empowered by him. So he can empower them, he can do it himself. So in this case, particularly for the legs and for the movement, Lord is doing it himself through one of his expansions as Viṣṇu. He is controlling the movement. This is what I can say. I don't know the other further technical details, how is it actually happening. Yes, Prabhu.
Can we say that like Lord Krishna, he is controlling our desire and our karma, that everything will go according to the desire of living entity, and his karma, which is makes what I deserve, desire and deserve, what I desire and what I deserve. That is controlling by the Lord Viṣṇu. It cannot be controlled by the demigods. Maybe can say like that or not. This is my opinion.
Desire is it's a function of living entity. It's your personal desire that you acquire due to association. You cannot say that the Lord imposed this desire to you, that he forced you to desire this or that. No, it's your choice. It's your choice. And then you act in certain way according to your desires, and you get certain, karma phala, the results of work. And the Lord is in charge of the functioning of the karma system, and it's working through the demigods. So the Lord is ultimate controller, you can say, of everything. But directly, there are many agents like demigods that control particular feature, particular function. But the Lord is the ultimate controller, Ishvara Parama Krishna. Okay, if there is nothing else. Oh, okay, just quickly, Prabhu.
So Prabhuji, nutshell, we understand that this sabhava can be changed or not can be changed. If can be changed, so how devotional service plays role?
Svabhava can be changed, otherwise there would be no point of doing anything. Just the point is it's very difficult to change. For example, Vishwamitra, he was born as a Kshatriya and he wanted to become a Brahmana, Brahma Rishi. So he did heavy tapasya for thousands of years, and still, he couldn't be accepted as Brahma Rishi. But then again, he meditated for 1,000 years, and eventually, his svabhava was changed. So it can be changed that just, for the conditioned soul on its own. Conditioned soul cannot change on its own. It needs help. And the most, potent agent of changing it is devotional service. Nothing else can change it faster. Varnashrama is very gradual path, In this life, you obediently act as Shudra, and then in next life, you may be born as a Vaishya, you may be upgraded. So over many lifetimes through Varnashrama system. But by devotional service, you can change it even in this life. If you're really sincere and eager and desirous to take shelter of Krishna. Okay, thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.